I've been doing kind of an interesting writing practice.
It started because I wanted to write about Simone Weil's Gravity and Grace. I liked that it didn't read like a book, but rather a series of collected notes and thoughts that were connected to each other. I first read Gravity and Grace last winter, after having many questions about the void. On the wall of my bedroom at the time, I had an index card that said, "What comes out of the hole?" In Gravity and Grace, I seemed to receive an answer. It was in the title, Grace. Simone Weil led a brief but devoted life as an activist, philosopher, and mystic. I read somewhere that she died from self-starvation. An interesting figure indeed. There is an intimate feeling to the book, a process of discovery, musings forged and compiled only in retrospect. The book was put together by a friend from collected notes after her death. Earlier this year, I decided I didn't want to just write about Simone Weil, I wanted to write to Simone Weil. I wanted to live with her words and allow them to guide me, sort of like a conversation.
How it works. I talk to her in my writing. I either ask a question or my writing reaches a natural lull and I ask for a response. I pick up Gravity and Grace and flip through the pages with my eyes closed. I stop at a random spot and trace my finger on the page, letting it find a few lines. After taking in the lines, I will respond. Am I really speaking to the dead spirit of Simone Weil, or am I just speaking to randomly selected lines? Hard to say, and frankly, I don't really care. Sometimes lines are so spot on that I genuinely get scared. Sometimes I see no immediate connection at all, but through trying to find one, I discover something. I don't know when I will ever get this first draft done. I find that I'm a very slow writer. Sometimes I wonder if it would be best if I just let the ideas stay up there in the sky, perfect and infinite, unburdened by the form of a novel. Up there it is absolutely complete. There are no mistakes or missteps that can be made by me. Form is confusing and hard. When it's complete, people can critique and judge it, reducing it into an object. I was speaking with my old research group the other day. Sophia said the day we spent working on a grant application to get funding for the group was the beginning of the end. The summer before that, there was this ripe, fertile feeling. Every week when we would meet at the anarchist library, up there in that little attic, it all felt so alive and exciting. We were creating this thing together. I still remember how the dust motes floated in the single stream of sunlight coming in from the window. I remember how stuffy it would get, and how we would have to strip down to skin and cotton. But then, in that sterile photography studio in the garment district, all concrete and steel and frigid, harsh overhead lighting, we had to name this thing that we were doing, package it as a product. It was a terrible meeting, and I think Sophia was right. It was the beginning of the end. Would it be best to just leave the novel I'm trying to write to be something uncontained, alive, ever-generating? I mean, Socrates didn't believe that writing was the most effective way of communicating knowledge. He likened writing to a painting, merely an image unable to shine the light of knowledge the way the living word could in conversation and dialogue. Is writing already dead by the time it is on the page? Is writing just another way to kill something? To pretend as if you're generating, but actually you're calcifying some radiating aliveness and thus destroying it in the process? Am I just procrastinating?
God is crucified from the fact that finite beings, subject to necessity, to space, and to time, think. I have to know that as a thinking, finite being, I am God crucified. I have to be like God, but like God crucified.
I think you were saying that to attempt to contain the infinite, to crucify it, is in our nature as finite beings. We experience time in this linear way. We must think and measure and attribute value. I've always had this unexplainable sense that writing relays something sacred, not because of words, but in spite of them. Sometimes I read something and I could hardly relay its contents, but I'm left with a feeling, a presence that I carry with me out of my apartment and into the world. I find it elsewhere, in the sunlight on the brick walls, the way the wind shifts through the trees. Yes, maybe it's worth it to participate imperfectly, to try to write a novel, to create something sacred in spite of ourselves. I feel really good about life right now. Really happy. Tonight, Ajo and I went skating. It had snowed so much today, so we had to shovel the ice. We ended up creating a maze because there was too much snow to shovel. Long, twisting paths emerged. I felt a feeling of levity and freedom. I didn't have much money, but I had love and I had my art. Somehow not having much money made the whole thing so much more romantic and joyful. We could not afford to go to a restaurant, but here we were in the snow chasing each other, falling down and kissing. I have true love and I have my art. I think this is all I will ever need from life. I don't want to just talk to you when I'm doubtful and confused. I want to talk to you in moments like this when I'm happy too. I don't have any questions. Maybe we can just talk?
In the same way suffering separates the opposites which have been united, in order to unite them again on a higher plane than that of their first union. The pulsation of sorrow, joy, but mathematically, joy always triumphs.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was feeling at that moment. It wasn't an absence of sorrow. Like you said, the suffering I had experienced with PMDD, wrestling with my angel, brought me to a place where joy felt distant and out of reach. During those luteal phases, my discomfort and sorrow would wake me up in the middle of the night. It would feel like the edges of me were blinking in and out like an old light bulb, like the outside world could enter into me, harming me or otherwise seriously altering me. The world felt unsafe and threatening. But you were right, it was through that separation of opposites that I could unite the two again on a higher plane of being. My joy had never felt so big before, so carefree and childlike. Through my sorrow, I found something. Today felt like the first day of spring. I walked for a long time, all the way through Little Italy, falling in and out of shops and then back to my place. The energy was frenetic and sparkling. People were sitting outside with their coffees, smoking and chatting. I passed by one man who was just pressed up against a building, eyes closed facing the sun as it graced his face and his gloveless hands. I was alone, but I felt connected to everyone in the city at that moment. I did my fair share of kicking the old dirty snow piled up beside sidewalks, scattering fragments of it everywhere, so that for a moment it looked like diamonds dancing in the sun, then quickly melting on the warm concrete. I walked across shiny wet pavements, water mixed with oil, the combination creating a mercurial swirl. It is always on the first warm day of spring that I remember why I live in a place with such drastic weather, because there's nothing quite like this. No drug could possibly come close to the high of a welcome return to the world after a winter folded over, bracing against a flurry of snow. Its poetry is always sweeping and dramatic, like a theater actor gesticulating to the audience, waving the prop in his hand so even the people in the back row can see it. It's like this, he is insisting. The world will be taken away from you and handed back many times over. Anyway, when I was walking back home, I was thinking about different approaches to writing. People like Bukowski would say don't write unless it's literally forcing its way out of you. Only write if you absolutely must. Anything less than that is a waste. This seems to connect to your notion of necessity and obedience. Obedience to God. To really not do anything unless instructed so by God, or some invisible force that pushes things along. But it doesn't always work like that. Because sometimes what you want to write is clear and cogent in your head. It is pulsing and radiating with truth and rightness, But when you actually decide to set yourself up in front of your laptop, you're met with radiating silence. Many writers profess that writing is a slog. It's laborious, and sometimes you might travel down certain paths that you don't ever show to the world because they just weren't the right ones. Does one need to do all this labor, wade through the muck of it, or can one just simply wait? Wait to be instructed by God or the muses, and when the moment is right, strike with clarity and precision that could only come about with some divine intervention.
When we are disappointed by pleasure which we have been expecting and which comes, the disappointment is because we were expecting the future, and as soon as it is there, it is the present. We want the future to be there without ceasing to be the future. This is an absurdity of which eternity alone can cure.
Yes, the future is nothing but mirrors and smoke. It exists solely in the realm of the imagination, promising so much but actually giving very little. I think that you were saying that my question is actually about our relationship to time. It's not so much about waiting for the swell of inspiration in which writing can occur, because that presupposes that writing happens in some imagined future moment, when, like everything else, writing occurs in the now, the present moment. When I'm doing other things, walking, watching TV, reading, making food, I'm not waiting for writing because this would relegate the present moment to simply a waiting room. It would be like me picking up a dated magazine in a doctor's office, killing some time while I waited for my name to be called. Maybe this moment, the only moment there ever is, always holds a creative potential, and there are many ways this can be used. If you're writing, write. If you're painting, paint. If you're washing the dishes, wash the dishes. Let it be an act of eternity.